Hi, this is Megan with Beadaholique, and today I'm going to show you how to do Viking knit using the Lazee Daizee Viking Knit Wire Weaving Toolkit. So it comes in this plastic container. It'll look like that. When you open it up, we've got our instructions. Don't throw this away, because this is also a handy reference. So I'm going to show you how to do it, but this has some good information, such as what hole on the draw plate you want to use for what gauge wire you used and how long that will make it and all that good information. So hold on to this. It is very handy to keep. Inside the kit, you'll have the actual Lazee Daizee tool. So this is the tool. This little daisy shaped piece comes off. This is the draw plate, helps you smooth it out at the end. This is going to hide all number of mistakes. We love this piece. We have a little cloth here in terms for smoothing it down before you put it through the draw plate. It comes with a really long straight pin, or a push pin, some clippers, which are in there for cutting the wire, and then a little wire coiling mandrel. You don't need this to do the Viking knit. This is just for if you want to do a coiled end cap, which it tells you in the instruction manual how to do. So you can do Viking knit, which looks like this, with a few different gauges of wire. You can use 24, 26, 28. They're all going to work. This is done with 24 gauge craft wire, and I'm going to also use 24 gauge in this video to show you. So I'm just going to show you how to use the tool to do the Viking knit and how to add new pieces of wire, because you don't want to work with too much at a time. And then there's another video showing how to do the ends, how to add the cord end cap on to finish it off. So to start with, you're only going to want to work with 2 to 3 feet of wire at a time. Actually, probably 24 to 30 inches. You don't want to overdo it. So go ahead and cut a piece of wire about 24 to 30 inches long. What we're going to do is take the wire, and there's a hole in the Lazee Daizee near the top, and it goes at a diagonal through the piece here. So put it in the upper hole and have about 1 inch of your wire coming out the bottom hole, and hold that still. Okay. Now you're going to take the other end of your wire, and you're going to put it through one hole in the daisy part, and you're just going to put it to the one right to the right, just to the right of where it's coming out of. And then when you bring your wire down, you want to make sure that it's not underneath the original part, it's to the left there. Anytime you're pulling your wire through, make sure it does not kink. So give that a little tug, don't pull too hard. Now every time you make a loop, use your thumb to hold the loop in place. This first row, you want your loops to come down to about the indentation here. So use the middle finger of your left hand to hold the tail in place, and use the thumb to hold your other loop in place. Now you're going to bring the tail of your wire down through the top of the next loop in the daisy, the next petal as it were, and come over the rest of the wire and pull down. As you practice, you'll find the tension that you need to make it nice and even. And right down through the next petal hole and pull. And again, you want this bottom line here for this first row to be about at the indentation. You need a little bit of extra room so that you can clip those off. Hold the loop, go down through the next, and pull. You don't have to go around into every hole. You don't have to do 6 loops in a row. You can do fewer, and it will result in a thinner piece, but I'm going to just show you 6. That will result in a piece about like that. It's easiest to start with doing 1 in each one. Keep it straight. And continue. All right, when you get back to the beginning, you're going to take your tail end of your wire and you're going to go underneath both pieces of wire in the first loop that you made. And again, you're going to pull your tail over your existing piece of wire and give a little pull. Hold that loop with your thumb. Go underneath both pieces of wire in the next loop, from right to left, over the rest of the wire, and give a pull. And now you want to try to keep your loops all the same size, and you can twist the head here a little bit. The idea is to have a loop sitting on each flat edge of the hexagon here, and that's going to make it easier to bring your wire underneath the loops. Every time you want to hold that still with your thumb. Go under the next loop, under, and if your first few rows look really messy, it's okay. You can always trim them off. This does get neater with practice. It will get much neater than mine. I have not practiced enough for mine to be perfect yet either. Okay, when you get back to your first row, you're going to go under that loop, and you can see the tail is still on its way down there. Go ahead and grab the tail too. It's just going to give it a little bit more of a sturdy beginning. The pin is to help get underneath the wire. You can kind of lift it away a little, and then it's easier to put your wire through. So you're going to go underneath both pieces of wire in the loop and underneath the tail, just to keep it in place. And then you're going to continue around for the third row. You only want the wires you want. Don't get your wire stuck in all these other places there. You just want the two, unless you're grabbing the tail. The idea is to have all your wires, or all your loops the same size. That will give you a really nice uniform finished piece. And anytime that it's kind of difficult, go ahead and go in there with the pin tool and lift it up a little. And don't forget, when you start a new row, it is going to move down, so you don't need to try to make it work straight across. It is going to take a step down every time. So as you can see, this one is lower than this one, and that is the way that needs to be. And once you get past the first few rows, you're going to get to the point where your tail went into the hole, and you won't need to capture that anymore there. And then you're just going to continue to work until you're just about done with your wire. And then I'm going to show you how you'll add a new piece in. And as you get to the point where your tail comes out here, you do not need to keep that, to weave that piece in. That will actually trap your piece on the tool. So don't grab this piece. Grab the first one before it goes in, not the very end when it's coming out. Okay. And once you've gotten around a row without weaving the tail in, it's actually going to be helpful if you gently, don't squeeze too much on your work. Just squeeze at the top where the little daisy shape is. Pull your work off. We're just going to trim that tail. Once you keep going, you won't be able to get up into your work to trim it, so just trim that off. and then keep it to the outside and slide that right back on. And then you want to make sure that you've lined up a row with the flat side of your tool. So you don't need to leave yourself a very long tail, but when you've got about a couple of inches left, go through your loop and then bring your wire straight down. And then you're going to very gently squeezing just the tip and not the actual Viking knit part. Lift up until your last loop is over the top hole in the diagonal hole. Then you're going to get a new length. Again, you only want to work with about 24 to 30 inches at a time. Bring your new wire through the center of that loop and down through the hole, and you're going to fold back and hold on to about an inch tail, just like you did at the beginning. Bring your wire down a little bit gently, and then you're going to complete the rest of the row just like you would normally. And once you've moved to the point where the head is not attached anymore, it can be a little bit more difficult to keep your rows straight in place on the flat sides. So just be sure that you keep them nice and lined up so that you have a loop sitting on top of a flat part. It makes it much easier to put the wire through underneath. When you get to this tail end coming out of that hole, don't catch that, just skip over it. Okay, so once you've finished the rest of the row and you come back to the loop in which you had the join, you're going to gently pull your work off the tool and bring your ends together. You're going to place it back on. And now you're going to pick up the two side loops, the two pieces of wire on the sides, and you're going to bring your piece right through there just like normal. And then continue around and finish the row. And don't worry about what the joins look like if you can see the tail. When you pull it through the draw plate, you're really not going to see very much of that. When you come back around to the loop that has the tails, you're going to grab the sides of the loop and the tails. You want to grab the tails for three rounds. So you got them in that first round. This is number 2. You're going to grab them 2 more times around. And if your rows start to migrate, you can also use the pin tool to try to move them over a little bit. Just be gentle. When you're using wire, especially a dead soft wire like artistic craft wire, you just kind of want to be gentle. If you are too rough, it's pretty soft and you might just break your wire. And you can also pretty easily scratch the color finish off if you're using a color finish. So just be gentle. Now I'm going to grab the tails with my loop for the 3rd time. And then pull your work up and trim the tails. Not your working wire, just the tails. Just right at the bottom of the loop there. And slide your work back on. As you work, this is going to move up. You're not going to be able to attach the head back on anymore. If you do a longer piece like this, if you're going to do like a necklace piece, it's going to get, quite far off of the tool. So just make sure that you're working where it's comfortable for you to hold onto the tool and where you have access to those holes for when you add new wire. And don't worry about this piece being attached. Then you'll just continue on until the end of your wire length and just keep adding pieces until it's as long as you want it to be. And don't forget when you're figuring out your finished length that you are going to be adding some type of end cap to the ends, and that is going to add some length depending on what type of end cap you're using. And also when you're figuring out the length, you'll need to use the charts given on your Lazee Daizee instructions, because there's the whole chart. I'll show you when I'm done with this in a minute. There's a whole chart that shows you what the finished length is going to be depending on how small you draw it through the draw plate, because it's going to get longer when you draw it through the draw plate. So you can either just do a whole lot extra and experiment and see how it goes, or you can try to actually figure out how much you'll need. So go ahead, and when you get to the length that you are happy with, just going to bring the wire down, and you don't need to do any kind of securing on that. Next, you're going to push the little head part with the daisy down so that you can get access at those loops at the top and make a cut, so that way you can pull it up. And you are going to lose some parts there, so just take off anything that's loose and don't yank on the tail, just trim it. And I would trim it just a tiny bit above. And again, this tail also just a tiny bit above where it's coming out of the loop. Okay, on your instruction sheet here, there is a Viking knit wire draw chart. And what this is based on using 25 feet of wire. You pick your gauge and how many loops you made, which is if you used all 6 or if you did 4 or 5. And then it's going to tell you raw how long that would be. So I used 24 gauge wire with 6 loops. So raw, it's telling me that 25 feet will give me 7 1/8 inch length. If you draw it through the 3/8 inch plate on the hole on the draw plate, it's going to give me 7 3/4 inch length, and so on. And where it says NA, that means that your piece is too thick to draw through that hole. So don't try to do it, you'll scratch up your draw plate. So this is going to be how you figure out how long you want, how long your piece is going to be based on using 25 feet of wire. So that'll give you a good idea. So when you've got your piece off of the tool, you're going to take conditioning fabric and just roll your piece in the fabric. And it just helps to line up your rows and get it ready for the draw plate. Now you're going to need to put some wire to hold on to when you draw this. So cut yourself 3 pieces, and they should be 3 or 4 inches long. And then you're going to take the top, which is where you have all the rounded loops, and you're going to place the pieces in. You might want a little bit longer. Cut yourself maybe 5 or 6 inch pieces of wire. And you're going to go straight across. You have basically 6 loops, so you're going to go through 2, 2, and 2. And you're just going to bring it through straight across and out the next side. Then take your wires and twist them up. And you want to use a thinner gauge wire for this. If you were using scraps, that's fine, but you don't want to make it too thick because you want to be able to get a nice twisted handle. What this is going to do is allow you to pull evenly on all the loops at once. So you're going to take the draw plate, figure out what size you have here, and then you're going to go to the next smallest hole and pull your work through it a few times. Try to do this in one fluid motion. If you have a long piece, that can be trickier. If you stop, you might get kinks and bends. Once it's fitting easily through that hole, you're going to go down one in size and pull it through. And several times on that one, and then go down a size. And you can use pliers to pull it through the first time. As you can see, it's lengthening it, and it's also smoothing it down and making it look nice and even. So you want to make sure that you're not drawing it through anything that's smaller than it recommends. So this says the smallest that it recommends is the 1/4 inch. So that's going to be the 1/4 inch, and that's going to be your finished piece. Now, when you want to cut this, you don't need to worry about finishing the ends. All you're going to do is cut it very slightly longer than what you want, and then pull off the loose pieces, and it will not unravel. So just anything that's hanging loose there, and that's your end. And then you can attach cord end caps to that. So check out the other video on how to do that.